Welcome to 2026. I hope your year is already kicking off in a great start. I know I am. I'm super excited and optimistic about this year. A lot of what was happening in 2025 in my life was really to kind of set up 2026. So I am really pumped about this year, but you don't care about any of that if you're here for the third edition or is this the fourth edition? 2023, 2024, 25. This is the fourth edition of the Stephen Corson predictions episode. This is usually one of my most downloaded episodes of the year. And I've learned that it's not because you guys really are interested in whether or not I'm right. Maybe some of you are, but man, between my friends, family, and a lot of you on the internet, you guys just cannot wait to point out the things that I get wrong. And you know what? I'm doing pretty good. I'm normally shooting for around like 70% or something like that on some of these predictions. So we're going to see how it goes. I love it. It's a lot of fun when people come up and start busting my balls if I make like a bad call or something. But I really enjoy doing this one. And yeah, let's just dive into it. So if this is the first time you've listened to one of these predicts episodes, basically I have a couple different, random categories that I go through. I make predictions for the previous year. I talk about what they were and we see if I was right or not. And then I make a prediction for this upcoming year in 2026 in the same category. All right. And then you get to make fun of me in the comments or whenever you see me in person and we get to talk about it. And it's a lot of fun. So first category, who's going to win the Super Bowl? So, there's a caveat to this because the NFL playoffs are just now happening. I'm not talking about who's going to win it, in the next couple weeks. I'm talking about who's winning it when we start again in the fall. So I had predicted the Ravens last year. It is obviously wrong. They didn't even make the playoffs. They fired their coach. I believed in Lamar Jackson. I'm a Bucs fan, so it's not like I have a bias there, but I did pick him 2 years in a row. I'm done. Okay. He didn't have what it takes. I'm going to go out on a limb. Okay. And this one's nuts. And if I put some money on this and get this right, my brother will be really happy and it'll be a big one. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to win their first Super Bowl in 2026. Here's why. Liam Cohen is the new head coach. This was his first year. He took them from 4 wins to 13 wins in the regular season. That's incredible without any major changes. They've got their quarterback. They've got talent around them. I think they need one more year of getting used to him as a coach, of him getting used to being a head coach. He was the offensive coordinator at the Bucs. We loved him. We wanted him for our head coach, but alas, it didn't happen. So anyway, I think the Jacksonville Jaguars will win the Super Bowl in 2026 season. Okay, so there's that. I was already wrong about the Ravens. Forget them. So the next one is the macroeconomic trend of the year. Last year, I said that it would be the end of war. Now, here's the thing. I was kind of right, but I was wrong about which war. So when I initially made this prediction, the Russia-Ukraine war was the one that was really the only thing happening at the time. And Trump was just coming in office. And I thought, okay, he's going to come in, he's going to pull leverage, he's going to end that one. Well, then right at the end of the year, the attack on Israel happened. Then things escalated from there. So I had been thinking about the Ukraine war and stuff like that. Well, this year, Trump did end, or he helped contribute facilitate the peace between Gaza and Israel. So that was great. He did end war. It just wasn't the one that I was thinking of because it hadn't really got full blown, at that point. So kind of right, kind of wrong. The macroeconomic trend for 2026 that I see is going to be the rise of socialism in America. So this is what I mean by that. You saw it with the New York election. I don't think that's going to be the last time that we see a openly socialist, person on the left get elected into some type of office like that. And the reason for that is because people are struggling, especially younger people that are bought into the lie that if you go to college, you follow all the rules and you get your A+, and it doesn't matter what your degree's in. It can be in some, gender studies or basket weaving or, whatever. It's essentially some useless degree. It's not STEM related, that you're going to come out with $120,000 in debt and you're going to be able to find this job that pays you a crap ton of money, and you'll be able to live, the American dream. You'll be able to buy a little house and, support your lifestyle, all that. That is not happening. And now you have this younger generation that is saddled in debt. They were sold a bullshit lie, and now they're just looking for a way out. And socialism sounds really good when you don't have any hope and when you don't understand history. Okay. And also when you've been relatively sheltered. We're seeing it with Venezuela. They were just freed, and the Venezuelans are just absolutely beyond themselves. They're so excited. We should be excited for them. The end of Maduro's reign is great for everybody, but it's interesting to see people protesting against it. And then the Venezuelans are saying, hey, until you've stood in food lines before, don't tell me that you're for socialism. But sometimes you have to learn things the hard way. And I think that there's pockets of America that need to learn the hard way, and they're going to give socialism a try. So I do think we will continue to see the rise of socialism in pockets of America. I don't think it will have a long-lasting foothold, but we're probably in for an interesting 4 to 8 years in a couple areas. So that's my macroeconomic trend that I see for 2026. The real estate trend in 2025, I said that there was going to be a little bit of a housing boom. I didn't say it was going to be a big one, but I just said, hey, we're going to see a lot more construction. Things are going to ease up. I was close. I was kind of right. It wasn't as boom may not be the accurate word. We did build more houses, but it still wasn't as much as we would like to. And then, the housing market's kind of gone crazy. So I'm going to chop that one up because it's very Florida. We've seen a housing boom, but then other places in the country haven't. So it's very mixed data on that. So we'll just chop that one up to even. How about that? My macro or my trend that I see for 2026, and I hope this one comes true, and I'm pretty sure the majority of you are going to like this one if it does. I see that we will start to have governors in their states eliminate property taxes. They're already looking at this here in Florida. DeSantis, the governor here, is trying to I think it's getting on the ballot in 2026 to be voted on. There's other states that are talking about it. It just makes no sense that you can own your home outright, that have your mortgage entirely paid off, and you can still lose it if you can't pay the tax bill. And a lot of these people are getting into really tough situations because, we see it here in Florida, you see it in other states, especially if they're coastal, to where these people have lived in these homes for 15, 20, 40 years. They have paid off their mortgage, but the valuation of their home has climbed into the millions of dollars, and they can't afford the tax bill on a millions of dollar home when they bought it for $50,000 40 years ago. So now they're forced to sell their home and move, and then it's hard for them to find something with an equivalent market. Like, it's insane that you would have to move because you can't pay a tax bill and that your house will be taken from you when you own it outright. We don't do that with anything else. We don't do that with cars. We don't do it with anything else, just homes. So I think it's unlawful. It needs to end. And I am hoping that that starts to really catch on in 2026 and that the elimination of property taxes starts to begin and get a foothold there. Okay. Social media trend for 2025. My prediction was that we would see AI backlash, and we definitely did. So in 2025, AI video got insanely good. AI pictures, you can't even tell the difference. At least in 2024, we were dealing with the 6-finger issues or something like that. They couldn't get wording right. Like certain things, just you could find it. The lighting was off. Nowadays, I can't tell the difference. I cannot tell the difference in some of these things. It's unbelievable. And now you're starting to see these AI influencers that are coming out and getting a little popular. And who's pushing back? The real influencers, the people who are being threatened by this. I was actually prompted because of, I have tens of thousands of followers. I was prompted to do an episode as a brand promise to say, hey, I will never use a digital twin unless it is clearly stated as an ad or some type of that. Because I could literally digitally twin myself, clone my voice, type in a script, and then I could have this background. I could be on Mars. I could do whatever I wanted. I could be on a private jet. And it's like, Well, at what point does trust start to erode? And trust to me is one of the most important elements of my brand. So I don't want to do anything that is going to cause my audience not to trust me. So that's why I made this brand promise in the face of all this AI backlash. I said, I am not going to use an AI digital twin. If you see a video of me on any of my channels, it's me in front of the camera. Simple as that. Okay. So that was definitely true. We're seeing that across the board. The AI backlash, people got super mad. I thought this was a little weird. There was a Coca-Cola commercial over the holidays that was made 100% AI. Personally, I thought it was kind of a crappy commercial. I'm like, for a multi-billion-dollar brand, it just wasn't that good. But they were very, out about the fact of, hey, we made this whole thing with AI. People did not like it at all. I was really shocked at, like, viscerally angry. A lot of people were about a Coca-Cola commercial. It was very interesting. So we're definitely seeing some AI backlash. I do think that will continue into 2026. But my big trend for social media in 2026 is that we will see global usage of social media across the board decline this year. Here's why. The younger generation, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, are recognizing how bad it is for them. The other thing that you're going to start to see is that I believe schools, and I could have called this for my educational trend, but I didn't. So I'm going to bring this up now. You're going to start to see, because the data is so overwhelming, schools are going to start to ban phones at school, not just in the classroom, but at school entirely. All right. The data is overwhelming. Not only is it better for grades, but the students actually like it. Like within a week or two, they're like, life is better when I don't have access to my phone at school and I can connect with my classmates, with my teachers, pay attention. It's across the board. So that's going to start happening more. That's going to reduce usage. I think other countries, I just saw Australia is putting a ban on social media. I believe it's under the age of 13, something like that. This is going to pick up steam, especially when it comes to the younger generation. So because of that, I see that usage with adults who are going to try to be more responsible with it, but also with teenagers and younger through either legislation or, just government, whatever the case is, they are going to start to use it less. So it's not going to be a massive dip, but it's going to be one of the first years that we see a fairly significant dip that's worth noticing. And I believe that could be a trend that tracks, decently into the future. So that's my social media trend for 2026. Stock trend for 2025. I said we would be slightly up. That wasn't true. We went way up. Very surprising. Did not think after the year we had in 2024 that we were going to kind of match that energy, but it was surprising. And I mean, especially when you consider the fact that we had this massive dip in Q1. I mean, the rebound on it was just absolutely insane. So, I was kind of right. I said slightly up. We were up a lot. I didn't think we'd be down, but yeah, that was an interesting one. So my stock trend for 2026 is this. I think for 2026, the boring industries win. So what do I mean by that? I still think tech, is going to have their winners. There's going to be some growth stocks that definitely hit. But overall, tech as an industry, I think, is going to be a little overheated this year because of the past 2 years they had. I think you'll see some minimal growth in there. You're going to get a little bit of an AI boom, kind of in the midst of that. But I think some of that's been priced in already. But I think a lot of the big winners is like you're going to see like gold and silver and commodities, more boring stuff like precious metals that are going to continue to rise. They had record years last year. I don't see that slowing down. I think you see things like Bitcoin. Bitcoin actually, I think, will do a lot better than it did last year. I don't know about the rest of the crypto market, but I do think Bitcoin is going to actually surprise some people in 2026 as people are looking for alternative investments. I think you're going to start to see things like energy. Energy is, something, especially nuclear, could really go nuclear with a lot of the different energy. This administration is very focused on energy, not just gas, not just oil. They are focused on lots of different types because in order for us to be able to supply AI, the main constraint is not chips, it's not computing, it's electricity. So we have, and we're maxed out. The grid in America is maxed out. They have to get very aggressive if we are going to continue to innovate with updating our grid and then being able to generate more electricity. So I see the energy stocks as more investment money flows in there, not just from the government, but private companies. That's really going to pop. So the boring industries will win the stock market in 2026. Personal finance trend of 2025. I called, and I nailed this one, that families were going to have one parent stay home. You are going to start to see this transition of two working parents into one. They wrote news articles about this. People, specifically women falling out of the workforce. They're saying it's Armageddon. It's the worst thing ever. I don't think it's the worst thing ever. People are doing what's right for their families. You're seeing, this was probably one of the craziest things I've seen. They called it like the tradson trend. When I called this, I did say families are going to have a parent. I didn't know that we were going to take that like to this extreme to where now what you're seeing is if you have like a mom that her husband has died, he's no longer around, anything like that, they have this interesting trend called trad sons, to where these 30 to 40-year-old guys are moving back in with their mom and then basically taking over as the man of the house while still acting like a child. Like they don't really work. They're just, their mom is, collecting retirement and social security. And then they're just responsible for upkeep on the home and all this other stuff. And they're just home, and let's call it what it is. They're basically just kind of losers. Like it's fine to move in and take care of your mom and all that. I applaud that. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm all for it. But if you're not going to work, you're not going to have a job, you're not going to build your own skill sets, you're just going to mooch off of her retirement. Like, I'm sorry, we're not here for that. So that's like I said, we really saw families bringing home somebody. And I think that's going to be a trend that's going to continue. Childcare costs are going through the roof. There is just a certain point, especially depending on where you live, that it just doesn't make sense to have two working parents. I coached a situation with a family last year, and they were like, yeah, we're trying to figure out what to do with our finances. And we went through it, and and she was pregnant with another child. It was their third. They had two other kids. They're living in an expensive city. And I just told them, I said, hey, would you ever want to be home with your kids? Is that something you thought about? And they're like, oh yeah, we talked about it. We don't think we can swing it. I said, well, look at the math. And basically what I showed her is that when their third child comes, her entire salary was not enough to cover daycare by like $4,000 a year. I'm like, you are working. You are working. Everything you do is just to pay your daycare costs. And with this new child, like you're even going to be short. It's like you will make money. Your family will literally make more money if you come home and be with the kids. She like quit within a month. It just didn't make sense on paper. And this whole time they thought it was worth it. All these other things. It just wasn't. So there's a lot of economic trends that are happening. I also think the educational system failing kids left and right is part of this, but that's why a lot of people are coming home. Homeschool is all on the rise. Don't want to get into that. I talked about that last year, so we'll get into that in a second. But that I definitely nailed that one for sure. Is that from a financial perspective, people were going to bring a parent home in order to make more financial sense, and totally nailed it. Was right. Can't make fun of me for that one. The 2026 personal finance trend, calling this one right here. Alternative investments are the new hot thing. Okay. Pokemon cards have outpaced the stock market for years. They are on an absolute tear right now. There's a little bit of a dip on that tear, but if you look over the past 2 years, they're on a tear. They've been on a tear. They've beat the S&P 500 handedly. Basketball, baseball cards, any type of trading card or sports memorabilia, art, collectibles, all of these things, luxury items and goods, Birkin bags, all of these type things. Gen Z and millennials are looking at these assets and they're recognizing scarcity in global markets. And now what's happening is they are going to start looking at that And you're going to have some traditional ones like luxury watches. Those have always been around for a while. I think those will continue to stay hot. But it's going to be the expansion of all of these other collectible items, because what's happening is this: it's cool now. You have athletes and movie stars that are talking about their collectibles, the things that they do. And you have shows on Netflix like The King of Collectibles with Ken Golden and his team. It's one of the top ranked shows in the world whenever it comes out. Everybody loves seeing all these secret treasures that people find in their attic. I mean, if you remember the show, The Antique Roadshow, it's basically just that with better storytelling. It's the same show. Essentially, people are just trying to get appraised to see how much their stuff is worth, and then they list it on auction. But I mean, we're talking superstar DJs like Steve Aoki. You've got athletes across the board. Tom Brady's out here looking for one of his rookie cards that hasn't been found yet. Post Malone, one of the top musicians of the past few years, told somebody if they find this particular one ring Magic the Gathering card of the One Ring from Lord of the Rings, he said, whoever finds it, get in touch with me. I'll pay you $2 million and we'll exchange it in person at a concert. I mean, like, unbelievable. And it happened, by the way. It was so cool. So this alternative investment, it's fun, it's profitable if you know what you're doing. And I think people are looking for things that drive nostalgia and in that sense of, just being younger, not having as many problems. So that's why I think alternative investments in 2026 are going to continue to grow the market, grow the hobbies. Trade shows will continue to be packed out anywhere you go. It's going to be a great year for that. All right, two more. The societal trend of 2025. Couldn't have nailed this one better. I said it would be the end of DEI. And damn, I called it. We reached a boiling point to where it just was not profitable anymore. Yes, the political climate and all these things have definitely changed. There's no doubt about it with the shifting of the party, but it was the culture that has really changed. People are getting sick and tired of people that were not qualified getting into positions above them. It had just reached this boiling point, and everybody's like, what are we doing? We had put enough idiots in charge, based off of all of the wrong characteristics. And unfortunately, it was giving people of, that weren't the majority in whatever category of oppression that DEI wants to put them in. It wasn't giving them a fair share, or a fair shake at things. So they were, at a disadvantage, because then everybody's going, oh, you got promoted because you are some type of DEI candidate. Like you must, they're looking at them already in a negative light. It did not work for everybody. In a meritocracy, when America is at its greatest, we are putting the people in. We should give people of all shapes and sizes and colors and races and whatever. We should give everybody a fair shot at it, but it should only go to the people who are the most competent and the best. All right. That's when America is at its greatest. So the end of DEI, it's there. They have been removing DEI out of reports. The government came hardcore about it. Everybody's changing their titles. It is a dying industry. I'm in the speaking industry. You can't find anybody out here preaching about DEI anymore. They're just not interested. And the funny thing about it was a lot of lip service. I worked in tech. The DEI stuff was so fake. Like, yeah, they did promote people based on that stuff, but they really didn't actually care about certain categories. That was one thing that was really interesting. They audited a lot of these companies that preach DEI. And what you ended up finding was that for the most part, it was white women that were benefiting the most. It was something like, they did a report, it was like 70% of DEI heads of departments were headed by white women. Like, how does that make any kind of sense at all? So the whole thing was backwards. You had it. It's like, well, what is DEI? Because then Asians started to be excluded from colleges and universities. And it's like, they have some of the best grades. They're studying for this stuff. Like, how does that make sense that the Asians can't get into Harvard? They're rejected more than anybody else. It was a wild time, and everybody had enough of it because it's not what America is. It's not in our DNA. We reward excellence. We believe in it. And now we're getting back to that, and we need that. So that's good. So that was the end of 2025. This is my 2026 trend, societal trend for the year. You are going to see a massive spike in independent journalism. Independent journalism is about to become cool. All right. You, at the very end of 2025, you had Nick Shirley with a phone, just this nice 20-year-old Mormon kid walking around with his phone, expose more fraud in the United States, billions of dollars of fraud, just walking around Minnesota with a phone saying, hey, is this a daycare? There's no playground. There's no windows. It's boarded up. He walked up to him and said, hi, can I get like pricing for this daycare? They had none. Okay. This exposed and is continuing to unravel massive amounts of frauds. You're starting to see it you're seeing it in childcare in certain states. You're seeing it in home health services in certain states, to where billions and billions of dollars are being fed into these programs, and there's nobody checking it. So what's happening is people are literally setting up daycares for their own families, saying, yeah, I watch 3 kids, and it's their sister's kids. And then their sister watches her 3 kids. And they're making like $1 million between the two of them, just watching their children. And then they don't actually watch their children. It's unbelievable. No, there was one building, just one door actually, that had like 14 different health services companies registered to it. So the fraud is everywhere. And what has happened is trust has eroded in the government. Trust has eroded in financial institutions. We just had the CDC today. I think it was literally today or yesterday. They just came out and said, we are only recommending 11 of the 75 vaccinations the US has been, requiring for children. And before everybody screams like one thing or the other, the thing that I found was really interesting is that the same 11 that they're recommending are the only 11 vaccines that all of Europe, who has way stricter health codes than the US does, they only recommend 11. And now we're recommending the same 11. How did we get to 75? Okay. COVID made it on, the recommended list for children. We know for a fact that there is no benefit of giving a COVID vaccine to a newborn. There's none. There's not even much of a benefit to giving it to an adult. So we know the data on that one's bad. So how is this anything other than a play of corporate greed? I am not a medical professional, but I have lost trust in these medical institutions because I've seen the political activism play out and sell out our medical system for corporate greed. We are sicker than ever. Okay. This year just found out I have an autoimmune disease. Guess what? Nobody in my family has one. All right. I have no family history. When I talked to the doctor about it, what did I ask him? How did this happen? And literally her exact words were, well, we think it's a combination between genetic factors and environmental factors. I said, that's literally everything. Like, you're saying it's my body or if it's everything around me. That's literally everything. So just say you don't know. So all we know is that the lifespan in the USA is getting worse and we don't know why. So we might as well just go back to the drawing board and start doing things from scratch. That's all I'm going to say on that. But independent journalists reviewing things that mainstream media, they're bought and paid for, they're propaganda machines on both sides. People walking around with their phones, checking, hey, is fraud happening here? Hey, you guys said this, here's actual medical data instead of just spouting pieces of whatever, drug is paying for the next commercial break. Instead of being a mouthpiece for them, I'm just going to say what I have found to be empirically true. And people will argue, well, how do we know to trust them? And, what if they're bought and paid for? The mainstream media is already bought and paid for. So who cares? We already know everything coming out of their mouth is totally worthless. So we might as well give some eager up and comers a shot. And who knows, maybe some of them will actually find something interesting, kind of like Nick Shirley did. So the independent journalism is absolutely going to be on the rise. People are going to be seeking out fraud. They're going to find a crap ton of it. And we as Americans are going to have to decide what we want to do about it. Because when it comes to voting in morons over and over and over again that don't get anything done, that's on the American people. We continue to do that over and over and over again. So we have to decide whether or not we're actually going to do anything with this information. All right. The very last one. last year, this is just my random trend of the year. I said that 2025 would be the rise of the robot. Okay. We saw probably 7 different companies that have all come out with some type of autonomous robot. Notoriously, Tesla has the most popular one. The Optimus robot, you saw the huge unveiling of the robo taxis with the self-driving. It was one of the most incredible events I've seen, to where you have these autonomous robots walking around serving drinks while people are getting, it was just absolutely insane. I think we're going to see mainstream adoption in 2026. You're going to start seeing people have them in their houses. They're going to do laundry. It's going to be wild. But 2026 was insane, or 2025 was insane year for the robot. So many companies, so much innovation there. It's only going to continue to happen faster. So there you go. My random prediction, my last one for 2026, is that health is going to become cool again. And yeah, what do I mean by that? What I mean by health is going to become cool again is that I think we have gone so far on just that we have finally started to recognize, hey, I shouldn't be drinking as much alcohol as I do. Hey, I need to cook more meals at home. The food that I'm eating, all this processed stuff, it's just not as healthy. This weight that I'm putting on, man, I'm going to lose some of it. I'm finally going to do it. 2025 was interesting because Ozempic came out. And prior to that, everybody, wanted to talk about fat shaming, and you can't say anything to the point that it goes along with this suicidal empathy that they talk about. It's like, I'm not going to speak truth to you, even though it is going to help you. And that is something I think that we're moving away from. Thank God. We need it, because I don't want to, if somebody is fat and overweight, it's not a good thing to call them fat and to shame them, right? It's not a good thing to say that in a way that is meant to be mean, okay? That's not what we need to be going for. But what we do need to be going for is that if we know somebody, especially if they're close to us, a good friend or anything, who is really overweight, we need to go, hey man, I just wanted you to know I love you, I care about you, and what do you think about coming to the gym with me? Getting on a walking schedule, something like that, in supporting the people that we love, because 1 in 3 people are severely overweight in this country. So, somebody, do something, reach out to them, offer to help. Hey, I go to the gym 2-3 times a week. What would you think about joining the club with me and just coming once or twice a week? We could work out together. I think you are going to start to see that. We are already seeing it with alcohol. People are drinking less than they ever have. I think part of that is actually economic. I think people can't afford to go out and get a lot of drinks. It's really expensive. But, I'm seeing this in other areas too. People are smoking less. That's been, on the downtrend for a while. And yeah, I just think that health in 2026 is going to be taken a lot more seriously. You're going to see a lot more people losing weight because it's easier with Ozempic. I don't think it's better with Ozempic. There's some interesting data coming out with that about what it does to your bones and tissue and all these other things. But yeah, that's it. So that's my 2026 predictions episode. We will see how all of this goes throughout the year. Thanks so much for listening and joining along. Screw you guys for all the fun that you're going to poke at me in advance. But hopefully this has been fun for you. And I'm curious to see what you think about some of these episodes, or about some of these calls too. So, shoot me some messages. Let me know where you think I'm on, where I'm off. And let's have some fun debates with it. Either way, 2026 is going to be awesome.